Welcome to our podcast, From Stardust to Us, in-depth conversations with thought leaders, artists, and spiritual activists navigating the challenges of our times with integrity, joy, and purpose. I'm Linnell Hayden, an advocate for animals and the natural world, a world traveler fascinated by other cultures and spiritual traditions, and these passions have deeply inspired both my life and my work.
I'm Bernice Marie Daly. I'm a contemplative activist and a spiritual guide across wisdom traditions.
So today we're excited and honored to introduce our guest, Kristal Parks. Kristal is a biologist, an elephant conservationist, an author, and environmentalist. She's been involved in social justice activism, anti-war activities, animal rights, rights for Mother Earth, her entire life. Kristal is one of these rare visionaries of action. She marries her sacredness and her action into her life and her life work, which is truly inspiring. She truly walks her talk to the point of having put her own personal freedom and safety in danger in the past, which we will get into a little bit in our discussion today. And just as a disclaimer, I've known Kristal for many years. I consider her one of my wisest friends, and she's been a mentor for me, and I'm grateful to call her my friend. So welcome, Kristal.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. So, Kristal, you know, in my introduction, that was really just the tip of the iceberg. And it's really, I mean, we could do a multi-episode podcast just on your life. It's just such a fascinating story. But what I would really like to start with is, I know you've had a few pivotal moments in your life that have set you on the trajectory that you're on now. And if you can just take us back to your childhood, that first time in your memory that sort of opened up your life's purpose to you at a very young age.
Well, thank you for inviting me to tell that story. When I was 7 years old, my family moved to Mexico City. And back then, you could have the well-to-do living with next to people living in just an empty lot. And so, in other words, the poor and the well-to-do weren't separated. And I really loved Mexican pastries. And a few blocks from our house, there was a very, very small little shopping area, but they had a good pastry shop there. And so once I would get my allowance, I'd walk down there to get my favorite pastry. And after doing this for a number of times, I started to become familiar with a young indigenous woman about my same age, because we would pass, I'd see her while I was walking down there, walking back. She didn't live too far away in a barranca ravine. And she was very, very warm and friendly and would always say hello. So we became friends. And by that time I was bilingual. And I just loved her dearly. We had so much fun together. And I brought her to my house, and she brought me to her house, where her house was a piece of rope hung between two trees with a large piece of cardboard over it. And her family literally lived underneath there. But I didn't mind that she didn't have shoes or clean hair, and she didn't mind that I did. I mean, classism was something we knew nothing about. All we knew is we loved each other. So one time I took her to the athletic club that my parents belonged to. And it was one of those rainy days in Mexico in August, where it's warm, but it rains in the middle of the day. So a lot of people don't go swimming then, but we were there. It wasn't rainy, it was just overcast. And I loaned her one of my spare bathing suits, and we're in this swimming pool by ourselves, having a great time. She'd never been in a swimming pool. So I was showing her how to hold her breath underwater, and we were screaming and laughing like girls do at that age and having a wonderful time until the portero, the security guard, noticed that she was there. Now, we were allowed to have guests, but apparently not an indigenous poor person. I knew nothing about this. And he came over to the side of the pool and started yelling at her, very, very verbally cruel, saying things like, "Who do you think you are? You don't belong here. You're nothing but a peon. You're never going to amount to anything." I have a hard time remembering it. So he kicked her out. And I was in shock. I had never seen anything like that in my life. And I loved her dearly. And so right then and there, I made a vow that I would use my life to create a world that did not have what I had just seen. And so that began my life, and my purpose was that. And I still remember her and still love her and still cry at the thought of what happened.
Amazing, amazing story and very moving. And as a young child, I'm going to guess that maybe many of us would have felt that badly if that had happened with our friends. I'd like to think that, but who knows?
Yeah.
But it seems to me that something more happened for you. You came to a sense of life purpose. And I don't know that many 10-year-olds necessarily would have included or touched inside themselves to that degree of something something that's been really central to your entire life.
Yeah,
and that's remarkable.
Well, and Bernice, I didn't think I was, choosing my life's purpose. I was just saying, I'm going to change this. I don't like what I saw, and I'm going to, I didn't know anything about it. I'm drawing my path or anything like that. Then it evolved on itself.
Sure. But that conviction, it seems to me, was inside of you. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't, yeah. Yeah. Remarkable.
So, Kristal, I'm wondering what happened with the little girl and your friendship.
I never saw her again.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, to just touch on what Bernice was saying, a lot of us, when we're young, we have more open hearts, but then as we get older and we get conditioned by our culture and our, family or whatever, to think of certain people as others, perhaps. You never did that. So that's just really remarkable. Something I admire about you deeply. I wanted to also touch on one thing that makes you different as far as with your activism. And you've done so many different kinds of activism, which I hope to touch on a little bit today in the time we have. But you think of your activism as a sacred task. And I'm wondering if you can just sort of expand on that, how you hold those two together.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess I would call myself a spiritual activist, And by that, I mean bringing together our passion for spirituality, our passion for the Creator, with our passion for justice. Bringing those two things together is spiritual activism for me. And I don't think that one works without the other. They are both needed. Spirituality needs activism, and activism needs a depth of spirituality.
And do you have any mentors in your life that have taught you this or helped you develop it within yourself? Who do you look up to?
Matthew Fox, who also is understands that and teaches that. And then there was, like the Berrigan brothers, Dan Berrigan and Phil Berrigan. They didn't call themselves spiritual activists, I don't think, but really they were, because they were motivated by their understanding of their Christianity. Both of them were priests. So yeah, that's hanging out with people like that was really helpful.
And as far as the Berrigan brothers, that happened quite a long time ago. Did you want to expand a little on the type of activism and actions you took with that group at that time in your life?
But what happened was in the late 70s, the United States changed its policy from building defensive weapons to offensive weapons. And I was married then, and we lived in a community, an activist community that was a spiritual activist community in Berkeley. And so we were really active with trying to expose things about nuclear weapons. And the Berrigans were living on the other side of the country, because we were in California, they were on the East Coast. But we hung out with them sometimes. But so when this shift came, it really was concerning for us. We wanted people to know about this big shift from defensive to offensive, because now we become the terrorists with our weapons. We hold the whole world hostage by our nuclear weapons. So we did what we could. We went on radio shows, we did talks, we did writing, but it didn't make any difference to people. Didn't change anything. So we decided we needed to do something really big to wake people up. We decided to break into Lockheed Missiles and Space Company and pour blood on the Trident missile, which at that time was the most powerful missile of all. And it just didn't have one bomb in it. It had multiple bombs in it. I think maybe as many as 12. So that when it was gone off, all the bombs would go out like that. So what we did was the night before, we had a lot of people come, and we had sacred ceremony in preparation. And people came, and we had a nurse who drew blood from people, so that we put their blood in bottles, and we were driven to Lockheed Missiles and Space Company on a truck. We were in the city in the back of the truck, and it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and we went up to the fence, the barbed wire fence, and we put a piece of carpet over the barbed wire and just slipped down. We put it there so we could, slip down without getting scratched by the barbed wire. And we were not noticed by the guy in the high towers, and so we ran across the grass, and the guard on the grounds didn't notice us either. So we reached for the doorknob, and it was unlocked. Lockheed Missiles Space makers, makers of bomb, didn't have their door locked, even though like the week before they passed the test of security. So we walked in, and we were camouflaged a little bit. We dressed up a little bit like you do if you're going to a place like that. And we put name tags on, like they all have name tags. And people were there. It was a big, it was a wide hallway, but there were, like desk long. Nobody noticed us. So we were looking for the room where they were making parts of the Trident missile. And we had a blueprint of the building. If you can imagine, how did we get that blueprint? I'll never tell you. So we had a blueprint, so we knew where to go. And we walked in there, and the inner stage section of the Trident missile was in that room, which is what we were looking for, because it was 30 feet high, so it's not going to fit all of it in one room, and nobody was in there. But they were off somewhere because there were pigs with their coats on. So that was great. We could just do what we wanted to do. And so we opened up the filing cabinet, and we took out blueprints for building genocidal machines. It was shocking to see this and to realize not only could humans do this, but they were willing to do it. It was shocking. And, I lost my innocence at that point, watching that. So we took the blood that had been donated to us, and we splashed it all over the wall and on the blueprints. And we laid the blueprints on the floor, splashed it all with blood as a symbol. Spilt blood, death, is what this means. And then we could have walked off and left. Nobody noticed what we were doing, and some activists do that, but that wasn't our value. Our belief is that, you do openly what you do, and you pay the consequences, So they finally found us, and we were charged with multiple different things and facing 8 years.
Mm.
So that's that story.
Wow. And, I'm thinking of, Martin Luther King and the nonviolent protests, which is clearly what you were engaged with in terms of your approach and taking responsibility. And 8 years is a long time. I just want to say I'm a little it's not too happy that you could get in so easily, actually. For something like that, you would think it would be well protected.
Well, I don't think they do it anymore, leave it, or so lenient anymore.
Right. That was a little bit of but it was a work day, I guess. And as you said, you dressed up. So people just took you to be one of the other folks, 8 years, was that what happened for you?
No, we all defended ourselves. For example, a lawyer who was the sister of one of the defendants, Larry Purcell was his name. His sister, the lawyer, came to visit me. And when they come visit you, you're in a little room, a tiny little room with a table, and you talk across at each other, to each other. And she's going through, everything that I was facing. And she was really offering to defend me for free. And but the issue that I had with that was, if she defended me, she would be trying to get me off on a technicality. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to speak freely, honestly, about why I was there and what danger we're facing. And there was a newspaper on the table, and it was springtime, it was April, and it was a picture of these swans in this little pond. And I looked at them and said to myself, are they worth 8 years of my life? Because if these bombs go off, everything's going to die. You know, are they worth 8 years of my life? Yes, they're worth 8 years of my life. So I told her, you know, I'm going to defend myself so I can speak from morality rather than legality. And so I did. And see if you can guess how much time I got.
I know you've told me, but I forget.
Oh,
I would love for you to tell us, you know, what you remember that you said to the judge.
Oh, I was making the case that all the money that was going into building these weapons were causing deaths without the bomb going off. You know, that money that's going into that could be feeding the poor, could be, you know, building homes and stuff like that. So I was talking about the bomb is a problem, causes deaths even before it's used. I think that was a big thing. And
I think the same could be true today as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So you did do a little time. How much?
How long? Yeah.
I got 60 days.
Okay. Okay.
You were very convincing to that judge then.
Yeah, some said he had tears in his eyes. I want to know if I can share a story with you guys. I have some really interesting stories about my time in jail, but I want to share this with you if I could.
Can I ask you, were you scared? I'm not hearing you say anywhere along the line that you were afraid.
No,
You
no,
weren't.
no, I was never afraid. You're in your power. When you're following your calling, you're in your power. So I was doing time. This was for I think this was for a different action, but and in this action, I was in in the women's area. There was instead of being in solitary cells, it was a large room with 30 beds lined up in 3 rows. Have I told you this story, Linnell?
No.
I'm not remembering this one.
Okay, so and a big bathroom at the end of this community room, so to speak, you know. And one day I walked back to the bathroom, the public bathroom, and there was this large African American woman. I don't mean large in terms of fat, but, you know, big and powerful Black woman. And I'd never seen her before. And so I walked up to her and I put out my hand, like to shake her hand. And I said, hello, I've never met you before. Did you just get written in, or whatever it's called? And she takes a step back, puts her arms across her chest like this, looks up and down, and says to me, don't you be talking to me. I don't like honkies, and I don't want no white bitch talking to me. So I said, okay. You know, I kind of creeped away, and I could feel that, you know, the wall coming up inside over my heart. And I pushed it down, and I said to God, no, I don't want any wall, you know, but I honored what she had expressed. I honored that. And so the setting was, like three rows of 10. And so I was sitting at my bunk one day, and several bunks away, this other Black woman was being accused of the white guard of doing something that I knew she hadn't done. And he's telling her, get your stuff together, you're going to the hole. That's solitary confinement. Now, solitary confinement is horrible, horrible. So and I'm noticing this, and I'm saying to myself, she didn't do that. And I can't be silent. I can just sit here. So I walked over there and I said, sir, and her nickname was Sugar. Everybody had jail nicknames. Her nickname was Sugar. Sugar didn't do what you're accusing her of. And it's wrong of you to put her in the hole when she hasn't done it. And he just kind of looked at me and said with no little contempt, well, write a letter. And he takes her off. So I go and sit on my bed, and I'm sitting there. Okay, what am I going to do? I mean, that was really dangerous to even go speak to him like that. He could have put me in the hole too. And so I'm okay. What can I do? What can I do? And I decided to go on a hunger strike, a water-only hunger strike. So I sent a notice, a letter to the main guard, the head of the whole place. And I said, I just want you to know that Officer so-and-so accused Sugar of something she didn't do. And therefore, I'm not going to eat again until she's released, or until I'm released from the jail, because I haven't gone to trial yet. And, so I didn't, and I didn't have a set date for the trial. So I didn't know when that was going to be. And so I just started sitting on my bed, fasting and that sort of thing. And when there were meals, everybody left the large room and went down the hallway to the mess hall. And there was the wall that faced the hallway wasn't a wall, it was glass. So anybody going down that hallway could see what was going on in that room. So people could see me sitting on my bunk, while they went. So word spread pretty fast, through the jailhouse. And so after some days, I'm sitting on my bunk bed, and it's mealtime, so everybody's gone except that Black woman in the bathroom who told me she didn't like honkies. She came over to my bunk bed, and this is the thing about your jail bunk beds. That's all you've got. Your bunk bed is all you've got, and it is sacred. Nobody comes into the area of your bunk bed and sits on your bed unless they're invited or they're your best friends. But she came and sat on my bunk bed and looked at me and told me her whole life story. And after quite a while, she got up, looked at me, smiled, and said, "We'll talk again soon." My point with this story, and I have other ones like this from jail. I don't think white people are going to do anything for racial justice without it costing, making a sacrifice.
I'm curious about that. Do you have something, when you say making a sacrifice, is it personal one-on-one are you thinking of, or are you thinking of reparations that they're talking about now, or other combinations of things? Or is it, you know, as you mentioned earlier, being in your heart and that kind of deep connection and integrity that you bring to your life and you bring to this conversation, that you're willing to put yourself out there?
Well, I think that's really a good question, Bernice, because I think it all has to be a sacrifice. You know, I think white people should give up positions of power to people of color. And if there's reparations, then white people should give up some of their houses and their land. It all involves sacrifice, in my opinion, for it to be believable.
Yeah, that's where the sacred action comes into it. Without the action, there's no deep, meaningful change.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a quote, and I put in the notes below the podcast episode who said it, because I'm not remembering who said it, but it goes something like, when you're used to privilege, equality feels like suppression. So that's why it's very hard for people that are used to privilege. And I don't mean rich people. I mean, just, your skin color gives you a certain, way that you can walk around our society that others don't enjoy, a certain freedom. So yeah, even the equality is going to feel like a sacrifice to a lot of people. But we're getting short on time. I wanted to make sure that I brought in a little bit of what you're doing currently, and your work in Kenya and with the elephants. And I would love for you to share. I know you have so many stories about elephants, but what are one of the stories or your experiences with elephants, or something you've heard or whatever, that has given you this knowing that they are sacred beings on earth, worthy of our respect?
Well, wow, that's a whole big book right there.
Yeah.
But I'll start it with saying that at the beginning of time, the first peoples in Africa lived with the elephants. I mean, elephants were around a lot longer than us. And so the first peoples were living with elephants. And they say that they learned how to love, they learned how to care for their families, and they learned how to live in community by watching how the elephants did it. I mean, they are so highly evolved. They're off the chart. And they are so empathic with profound love for all species. They'll help other species. For example, real quickly, during the tsunami of 2004, when 200,000 peoples across Asia died from the tsunami, there were elephants in Thailand who had been domesticated, and would give rides, were used to give rides to tourists. They were tied up, in these trees close to the beach. And elephants are so sensitive with their feet, they can feel the vibrations way down low. And they could feel the vibration coming. They could feel the tsunami coming. So they broke themselves loose from those ropes, and they went down to the beaches with the mahout, or their keeper was with them, and they would pick up people with their trunk and put them on their back and run up the hill and take them to safety. That's profound. That's beyond. I mean, I just, they are so highly evolved that they have abilities what we do not even know of. And so one of the tribal people I was with when I was working in Kenya for 10 years said that if elephants go extinct, humans will lose their souls and go crazy. And they mean that. And they believe that the Maasai and the Samburu tribes in Kenya, they believe that a seed of a seed of a human lives in each elephant.
So profound interconnection isn't even the right word. I mean, there's that continuity, that of oneness. Hard to find the language for it. Yeah, that I think is probably part of the original peoples had that perception. I know we only have a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you, in light of that, particularly, we have this massive climate change thing going on, along with a whole mess of other things happening, and a very unique time for us to be living through this period, and to be able in some way to impact it. And I was wondering if you had some thoughts or sharings that you might want to talk about now, because we're living, this is what we're living through, this particular era, shall we call it.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, because this is an incredible time to be alive, because we are at the crossroads. We are literally at the crossroads, human beings. And we either evolve beyond what we're doing, evolve to the next epoch, or we're going to destroy ourselves and go extinct. So, I don't think it's any mistake that we are here at this time in this place. Everybody has purpose, something very meaningful and necessary for the universe, or I should say for the planet, to survive, because we're on the brink of extinction. And so, yeah, consider it a great privilege that it took the universe 13.8 billion years to methodically, purposely bring you here at this time in this place. So.
And to feel empowered to contribute positively to the evolution of consciousness, actually. And learn from Mother Earth and all that diversity, as well as each other, of course.
Yeah, and that's why it's so incredibly important that we each express what we came here to do, so that we can contribute to the evolution, spiritual evolution of our species. So, well, with that, Kristal, we could do another 10 episodes. Thank you so much for sharing just a tiny bit of your life with us here today. And I wanted to give our listeners information, if you wouldn't mind telling them where they can find out more about you, where they maybe can contact you, or anything you'd like to share.
I have two websites. One is called pachydermpower.org. We didn't get a chance for me to talk about my passion is to stop the extinction of elephants. That's the elephant on the wall there. So you could go to that. That has just been made. That had just been come up. It's new. And then I have an older one that is in the process of being renewed, and that's called kristalparks.com. And that one more has my activism work. And the other, pachydermpower.org, is about my work for elephants.
And how do you spell Kristal differently?
Kristal, P as in Paul, ARKS.
Lovely to meet you, Kristal. Lovely
Thank you.
to meet you and be in conversation. And mystical activism. That's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Kristal.
both. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
To be intoxicated with the love of life, the earth, and all sentient beings is to be motivated by this love to act valiantly and courageously on behalf of those threatened, abused, and without a voice. When we act on behalf of what we madly and passionately love, gladly accepting the consequences of those actions, something shifts inside. The same power that bursts forth the galaxies in all their splendor rushes in to support our efforts. Life then becomes a profound and joyful adventure of living love in action, but not without pain. It is a deep agony to be awake and aware of suffering. The solution is to grow a big heart with a huge vision that can see magnificence reflected even in the tiniest ant.